All right, guys, good morning. We will start in 2 minutes. Right, we are on week 3 today, dialogue. Well, I stuck in dialogue. You knew we were doing setting, but I stuck in dialogue, right? All right, guys, we are about ready to start. If you could hear me, if you could just raise your hand and let me know. Right, thank you. Okay, now fair warning, we have quite a bit of writing and note-taking to do today, right? So we have to stay on the ball, but we do have a lot of breaks built in. So hopefully that will keep us entertained and occupied and not overwhelmed. Okay, we are streaming on YouTube. English is streaming on YouTube this morning, but the chat is off, right? So if that is easier for you or you need to use it, go ahead. But as I mentioned, chat feature is off, right? Okay, let's get into our class. Everyone has written a setting before, yes? All right, so this is our beginner slide, and we're going to start with, well, I don't have dialogue written here first, but we're starting with setting first. That's our heading, right? And we're looking for where a story is taking place and when a story is taking place. But we have to be able to tell that information in an interesting way. We don't just want to say, we were at school and it was 8 a.m. in the morning. That's actually pretty boring for our reader if they have to read it, right? So here are some ways to make the setting more interesting. And we are taking notes. We are taking all the notes. Right? And remember that a setting is where and when a story is taking place. Now, when could mean the hour and the minute hand of the clock, but it could also mean a time period if you have your story set in a different time period of your character's life or of the world, right? So where and when the story takes place. Right. So strategy number one, show it, don't say it. So here we are showing it. The sky was gray and the air felt cold. The branches of the tree swept the ground. So I told you it was where and it was when. If you had to guess about the time of day, if you had to guess about the time of day, and chat is open, you can tell me, what time of day would you guess? The second piece of the strategy is let the reader do some of the work. Let them do some of the figuring out. They might not get it perfectly, but they will get a sense, an idea. Okay, yeah, gray sky suggests that it's nighttime or early morning. That's a good one. Yeah, yep, all evening. Late. So we know it's not the height of day, right? All right, so let the reader do some of the work. So the area was deserted. Perfect place for what they had come to do. They started digging. So where do you think these people are? And then it says, make it match the story's point or ending or conclusion. So whatever setting you choose, it must directly relate. They mark the spot with a simple wooden cross. Now where do you think they are? So right, they're probably in the woods because it talks about branches of the tree. Or they could be in a cemetery because if they put in a cross would fit in perfectly in a cemetery, right? A graveyard, yeah, it could be a graveyard, right? So we're taking notes, note the examples, right? Now, if my story was about something serious and scary, this setting would work. If my story was about modern society, I would need to pick a modern setting. Like I might have to pick the city or I might have to pick the mall. If my story is about a family, then I might have to pick the home, right? Or a place where people usually are. So we choose a setting that fits what we are about to tell people about, right? So if you look at the picture over here, you could actually see, I forgot this was here, our image that shows what these words are designed to describe, right? Oh, that is true. They could be burying treasure, but there's no sand. So I don't know. If it was a beach, if you really wanted this to be a beach, you'd have to put in a you would have to put in some sand, some details that say beach. All right, so I'm giving you a few minutes to note the points and the examples. All right, I am on point 3, right? I'm writing 2 to get a gauge of how long it takes you. So I am on the third point. Y'all are there too? Okay. Finished, ready to go. Last 30 seconds, right? Okay, let's continue. I have 2 riddles. So we have some riddles as today's brain cooler. There are 2 easy ones and 1 hard one. I have no crown, but I am called a king. I have no sword, but I make others flee. I wear a mane, but I am not a horse. Who am I? And then I can change my clothes without going shopping. I can disappear without leaving the room. My greatest trick is becoming the background. Who am I? All right, you all got the first one. What about the second one? Nah, it's not a shadow. It's 2 animals. Both of them are animals. Everything today is an animal. All right, somebody got the second one. People are getting the second one, right? All right. I'm closing the chat. So to be right. Look at the third one now. So I'm gonna show you the answer for the first 2. A lion and a chameleon, right? Right. So think about the answer to this one. I look like I belong in a fairy tale, but I am completely real. I have a long nose, a long tail, and stripes that seem to have been painted on me. I spend much of my time in trees, but I am not a monkey. What am I? Honestly, this was an animal I had never heard of. Anybody knows what this is? Think about it. I spend most of my time in trees. What am I? It's an animal. Stripes that seem painted on. All right, anybody thinks they know? Now you could tell me. A red panda. That's interesting. Do they have stripes? A tiger. Do they spend most of their time in trees? A unicorn. Does it spend most of its time in trees? An anteater. Does it spend time in trees? A giraffe. But those are not stripes. Sloths and koalas. Those are not stripes. All right. Um, this is the animal. Oh Lord, I forget what it's called. It's not a zebra. Sorry, my program gave me the zebra, but it's not a zebra. Is the one on the left? Let's Google it together. See if we can figure it out together. I can't remember the name. I don't know the name. I've never heard of it before. Um, Okapi, that is it. If you Google striped legs, you'll find it. Okapi. It's a real animal. This picture is a little blurry. Sorry, I didn't realize it'd be blurry when I not the zebra. The zebra is not a lemur either. A lemur is not. The tail is striped, but the animal is not striped, is it? Okay, let's go to the next piece of our note. All right, so rule number one was show it, don't say it, right? Show, don't tell. So this is an example of the first rule that we had. Okay, so if we look at the first one, actually, let me turn back on the recording. Right, so we're going through and we're looking at some more detailed examples of each of the three rules now, right? So rule number one was show it, don't say it. Okay, so the first piece here, this is an example of saying it. The rain was falling, there was a strong wind, it was cold. Right? It's okay, but better is if we say sharp drops of water hurl themselves out of the sky and onto the asphalt. Right? So this tells us rain was falling. Then a strong wind flung itself through the trees, pulling leaves and twigs to the ground, right? So we have an interesting verb like flung, right? We've personified the wind, we've used personification. I shivered and hugged my hands tighter around my body. So we could figure out from that that the person is feeling how? Cold, right? So this is an example of showing it, right? So we're going to take down the example. Right? And we want to remember that the one on top is the boring one. The one that's very straightforward and direct. The one below gives us some more interesting things to think about. Because what kind of rainfall was it? If it's sharp drops of water. Anybody ever get caught in rain like that? Where the rain felt like it was stinging? All right, I am on the last sentence now, right? So you could be too. Hail. Yeah, anybody has ever experienced hail? Yeah, hail definitely is like frozen water hurling itself at you. But sometimes you're out and the rain starts to fall and it's cold and it's strong and it's so much of it. There's so much of it. You just minding your business downstairs and you have to go upstairs, but this rain is pelting. It like very forcefully falling. All right, one more minute, right? All right, last 10 seconds. Okay, let's continue. All right. We want the reader to do some of the work, right? No, I know y'all are probably tired of writing. Well, your hands are probably tired. So let's shorten the exam. I can shorten the example for you if you don't feel like taking on the whole thing. It was night. It was midnight. So you could take down, it was midnight and the clock chimed 12 times. Or you could take down, it was night and the only light came from a crescent-shaped moon. Sorry, the only lights came from a crescent-shaped moon is the one where the reader is doing the work, right? So this is the direct one for lazy readers, right? But nobody wants to be a lazy reader. They want to do the work. And this example is for hardworking readers, thinking readers, right? So you can shorten the example to suit if you want. Right? So it was night becomes the only light came from a crescent-shaped moon if you want. Right? We write in the bad one and we write in the good one. Well, the weaker one and the stronger one next to it, right? Yeah, guys. So if this was story, it's not that we put it in both, huh? It's that I'm showing you that this is what might be considered a weaker setting. And then this is how we fix it. We make it so that the reader has to get details and that they could infer what is going on. I'm not suggesting you put the two of them in a story. We are just looking at weak examples and strong examples, right? Now, if you're writing a story and all you could think about is it was night, it was midnight, then and it's better for your story to have a setting than no setting, right? So um make sure it has something. But if you can, make it a little indirect so the reader has to figure out, they had to do some work to figure out what is going on. Okay, I have written out the whole thing, so 1 more minute and then we're continuing, right? All right, let's go to the next piece. Okay, you'll have three more animals to get. Two here and one more, right? The other one is um the other one is the hard one. Right. So I live in the ocean but breathe air. I am not a fish and I can sleep while still swimming. Who am I? I feel I have the wrong picture answer after this. Then I have no fingers, but I can hold on to a branch. I have no legs, but I can travel through trees. Sometimes I use my tail like an extra arm. Who am I? All right, then we pause the chat here. Y'all are telling me A is an animal, it's not a boat. The second one is not a snake. People are saying whale for the first one, but also dolphin. And what about the last one? Monkey for the second one, right? All right, let me see. Do I have it? Yes, okay, I have the right pictures. Dolphin and monkey. I guess it could be whale, or it could be orca. It could be a narwhal. It could be. All right, let's look at the next. I have a tongue longer than my body, but I rarely use it to speak. I can catch dinner without chasing it, and my eyes can move in different directions. I am covered in scales, but I am not a reptile. This one I think is a harder one. Think of your answer, and I will you can tell me just now. All right, what is this one? Oh my God, somebody knows it already. It's not a frog, it's not an aardvark. Two people have it so far. Those of you who know what it is, how do you all know? It's not a frog, it's not a seahorse, it's not an eel, it's not a fish. Right, okay, so some of you guessed it, it's a chameleon. How did you all know? Where did you all learn these animal facts? Because I didn't know all those things about the animal, about the chameleon when I made it up. Well, not made it up, but found it. All right, let's look at our next piece of setting. Now, we have to write a setting using details that match where the story is going. All right, so this slide is a little bit longer, so take some deep breaths, do some finger stretches, right? But yeah, when we write a setting, we have to know overall what is the story doing. Is it a happy story? Is it a sad story, a suspenseful story? And then we do the setting to match, right? We match the setting to where the story is going. So let's say we were describing a lake, a body of water, right? So the setting here is a body of water. It's taking place by a lake. How you describe the body of water, the lake, relates to the type of story you're going to tell, right? If you're going to tell a scary story, it does not make sense to have to notice the butterflies and the birds and the children laughing and playing unless something ominous gonna happen to the kids. But no, right? If it is not, if it is a pleasant story, it doesn't make sense to talk about how deep and dark the lake is, right? If it's a story that's going to have a twist, then you could describe your lake in such a way with a twist. So if you look at this example here for the last one, the silver surface of the lake gently reflected the moon's gilded light. So everything seems nice and calm, right? Fireflies flitted across the surface. A bat skimmed the surface of the lake. Chirping crickets hid among the shrubs. So all peaceful nature sounds expected. Then we have the twist. From beneath the surface, a lone tentacle emerged, snatched the bat mid-flight, and disappeared beneath the surface as quickly as it appeared. So we're describing the setting, but we're doing it in such a way that it tells the reader not everything is as straightforward as it seems in this story. Right? So yes, let's make some notes. I am writing it too. So I'll know how long it takes, right? But the point is match the story, match the setting, sorry. Match the setting to the ending or the overall point of the story, right? Match the way you describe the setting to the overall point. You are welcome to take a piece of each one instead of the whole thing, right? But in the last one, just shorten rather than take only the first paragraph or the second paragraph because then we'll miss the twist. Just shorten one of them, right? So like for the first one, a scary story. Because my hand is tired, I'm not going to write all three sentences. I'm going to write the first sentence and the last sentence because that gives the idea. The black surface of the lake reflected nothing. And then nothing could penetrate it. Right? So you could shorten it, but make sure you don't lose the points if you do so. I am on the last paragraph. So presumably you are too, or maybe you finished already. Okay, I am finished. So 1 more minute. If anybody's still writing, you can raise your hand and let me know so I can see an idea of your numbers if you're still writing. All right, 2 more minutes. You can take down your hand now if you had it raised, right? But I'll give you 2 more minutes. Okay, last 20 seconds. Okie dokie. We must now move on. Let us, I think still has a game first. Have you played this game with Sir before? Yes, some of y'all have. Okay. All right, so you're gonna give me answers for it in the chat, right? Y'all want the music? Oh, oh no, what did I do with it? Where did it go? Okay. All right. True or false? Hair and fingernails continue to grow for several days after death. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay. Here's what y'all said. Y'all said the majority of you said true, but some people said false. But I think it's true, right? So that's the for real section. Uh-oh. What is happening? Our game doesn't want to cooperate. But I think that one is true. Let me see. Okay. What about this one? That one is true, but the game had it open twice and it showed me who's boss. So let's do another poll question with this one. Cheetahs cannot roar. Instead, they meow and purr like house cats. That sounds very strange. So I think it's probably true. All right, so let me show you what y'all said. Overwhelmingly, y'all said yes. Okay, so then if you, whatever team you are on, you have some points to go with that, right? All right, let's see. What's the next question? Poinsettias are fatal if eaten by humans. What? Is that true or false? We can't eat points. I mean, like, well, we wouldn't eat poinsettias, but is it poisonous? All right, let me show you what y'all said. Y'all said most of you said false. So let's see. Oh, okay. So it is false. All right. Let's do another one. Blowing on video game cartridges fixes them by removing dust. True or false? Does Ginny have real attitude, boy, for somebody who looks like that? Have you all ever had the charging port on your phone get full of dust and you had to blow on it to get the dust out? Is this the same kind of thing? All right, let's see what y'all say. Y'all say mostly y'all have said true. All right, let's see. Oh no, it's false. Wait, boys, look at this good there. All right, let me see. Let's do 2 more. I'm trying to give us 5 questions so we'll get a break. The genie is laughing at us, silly genie. Sloths can hold their breath underwater longer than dolphins can. That seems very suspicious. And sloths are supposed to be very fast in water, although they are very slow on land. All right, 10 more seconds. So send in an answer if you want to. The votes are close. Y'all are almost exactly down the middle. False is leading by 2 votes. 3 votes. All right, so false is actually true. All right, last one. There are more trees on Earth than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. I want to say that is false, but I don't know. What do you all think? There are more trees on Earth than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. What do you think? All right, 92 people said false and 32 people said true. So false, let's see. Oh my God, it's true? Really? How is this true? Does this mean plants? There are more plants on Earth than there are stars? I'm gonna make a note to ask her about that. All right, even with deforestation, that's still true. If you're on a team, you could see, if you're on the yellow team, you've won this round, 39 points. If you're on the red team, we've lost this round, sorry, 22 points. And the blue and the green are tied with 30 points, right? Let's go back to, there's no music playing, right? Let me just make sure that. But there is music playing, okay. Let us mute the music. Right, and he'll be laughing in the background at us, but that's okay, because we will use English to get real jobs and he'll still be stuck in a lab. Let's go to dialogue. Right. All right. Dialogue in a story. What your characters say. Now, how do y'all feel about dialogue in a story? So this is our heading. Do you use dialogue? Do you not use dialogue? Is dialogue just a thing that's there, but it's hard to write other than good morning, good evening, hello? Do y'all use dialogue when you write creative writing? All right, so some of y'all do, those of you, yeah, okay. And some of us don't really like it. Now, when you're reading something, do you like to, if you're reading a story, you like it to have dialogue? I like it to have dialogue too. Yeah. It makes it more interesting sometimes. Sometimes the characters could say funny things or interesting things, right? So the one thing I want us to remember, the overall lesson, is we're not putting in dialogue for dialogue's sake. A dialogue has to do something. It has to tell us about the character. It has to show us the setting. It has to help with the mood. of the story. It has to move the plot forward. It has to do something, right? All right, Salim has looked up the fact about the trees, and he's saying that there are 3 trillion trees estimated on Earth, but 400 billion stars in the Milky Way. So it is in fact more trees than stars. All right. Trees are not plants, right? So, I mean, if it was plants, then it would be double true. Yeah, most books do use dialogue, and we like to see dialogue. All right, let's talk about how to make it interesting. So, dialogue's purpose. It is there to develop the character, the plot, the story, but it has to make it interesting, right? When you're reading a story, everything in the story has to be interesting. All right. Now what is coming up on this slide is a number of examples, and we're going to copy the examples and we're going to figure out together and write down what is the purpose of the example. Right? So again, take notes. But we only have 2 slides for dialogue. And then once we get through those, that will be the end of class. Right? Now, don't take that to mean it's only 10 minutes. The slides have a lot of writing, but at least the end is in sight. Okay, let's look at the first one. Hurry up, the tide is coming in, Dad yelled. I can barely see the lighthouse through this fog. What is the purpose of that piece of dialogue? So we're on the dialogue. That is a new setting. It's what the character says. It is, I'm taking down to, the purpose is to develop story, but in an interesting way. What is the purpose of these lines that the dad says? What is it developing for the story? What is it telling you that you didn't know before? It is to build interest, but what's the information it's giving you? Isn't it telling you where they are? Where are they? They're on the beach, right? So it's telling you where they are. And is it telling you what the weather is like? They're on the beach. They're close to a lighthouse, or they're in the ocean and they're close to a lighthouse. And isn't it telling you some details about the weather? So this example is developing setting. It is showing setting. So this one here is dialogue used to show setting, right? Look at that. We didn't even realize, right? We just realized it's interesting. This pink is the pink too bright? Okay, but this is the work that this line is doing. Right, it's foggy. Okay, so we're taking down the example and the purpose of it. Now, when you do take down the example, be mindful of the punctuation. Right? There are quotation marks, exclamation mark, then quotation marks. Exclamation mark, and then quotation mark, right? Be mindful of the punctuation. I think the yellow is a little making it unclear, so I'm gonna take this off, but please be mindful, copy down the correct punctuation examples as you go, right? So this first example that you're seeing is dialogue used to reveal setting. That's not all it reveals, right? We know the characters are probably stressed because he's talking with exclamation marks. And they're fighting against time and the tide, and those things you cannot stop. Right? It's a tense situation. Will they hit the lighthouse if they can't see it? And he's yelling. So it's not only setting, it's also emotion and tension. Like somebody said, it was building suspense, I think. Right? It is. But in terms of what its function is, its main function is to tell us setting. All right, I am done, so I'm giving you all a minute again, and then we'll look at the next one. All right, ready? Let's look at the next one. You're not going into that cave, are you? Tom asked. Of course I am, Lena said. Someone has to find my brother. When you're writing it down, note that this line is indented, and when you get to what Lena is saying, you have to go in again into the line, right? Okay, what is the purpose of that piece of dialogue? What do we figure about Lena? What can we figure out about Lena? What can we figure out about Tom? Her brother is lost in a cave, yes. What kind of person does it make Lena that she wants to go and look for him? Tom is determined. Tom is the one saying you're not going in that cave, right? Okay, so we figure out a plot detail the brother lost. So Lena is brave for wanting to go search for her brother. Yes, and Tom might be protective because he's saying you're not going to cave, right? But in this case, Lena is the brave one. Also, Tom might also just not be brave. Yeah, Tom could be scared. We would need the rest of the story to know what is going on. But we could tell that Lena is brave. And we could also tell possibly that she is loyal. You all have siblings, right? If they were lost in a cave, you're going in to find them. And if you are going in to find them, is it because you like them or is it because they're your sibling and you have to? My younger child might go in to find his older brother because he likes him. But the older boy for sure would go in to be loyal, not because he likes the smaller one. So if you like your sibling, great. That's wonderful. I dream of knowing what that's like for siblings to like each other, both of them at the same time. All right, so dialogue to develop character, Lena, brave and loyal. All right, you have a couple minutes. We have a couple minutes while we write down the example. Remember to indent. That is why I have these arrows here to draw your attention to it. Not that you need to copy the arrows. Well, we don't know why they're in a cave. We didn't read the whole story. It's just an example of dialogue, right? But maybe they went down the islands. They have caves to explore there. All right, get caught up with these two examples, and we'll continue. All right, 1 minute again for the notes, right? We're going to the next one. Okay, let's go to the next one, right? You took the money, Marcus shouted. Oops, recorded. Right. You took the money, Marcus shouted. I didn't. Check the kitchen drawer. Sarah pointed toward the hallway. I saw Jake in there 5 minutes ago. Looks like Jake is the real culprit. All right, what is the dialogue doing in this particular example? Let me hear from you. What y'all think? Do I have the chat on? Yes, I have the chat on. Accusations of theft, yes. So that is there. But what element of the story is it? Is it okay, creating tension and suspense? Yes. Okay, so we know from it that money is missing. And who does it seem like stole the money? They're trying to figure out who stole the money, right? I don't think it's setting because setting is where and when. It develops plot. Ah, someone who said that. I had it and I closed the window, but yes, it's developing the plot. Yes. So if you said develop the plot, excellent. Now we're not sure if it because we don't have the rest of the story in front of us, so we don't know if it's Sarah or Jake or maybe Marcus himself who is running some elaborate scheme that we have to figure out, right? But it is telling us who it could be. And it's showing us action because Jake was just in the hallway, as it says, right? So dialogue to develop plot. Right? Be mindful of the punctuation and the spacing as you write down the example, right? Remember to indent when you get to a new speaker's line of dialogue. So you indented before you took the money. And then you go to another line and you indent again by I didn't, right? So I'm just going to write it here so we could see. And so I could also get a gauge of how long it's taking to write it out. Right, so I'm up to Marcus shouted, full stop. I go to my next line. No, I didn't, right? So you should be seeing from the examples, something we're going to talk about on the next page, which is that every new speaker gets a new indentation or a new paragraph, right? And that may seem strange to you because look at in my example that I've written out here, Marcus gets his own paragraph. That's just like one sentence, one line. And then to go have to start a new paragraph. What is Miss talking about? Is she crazy? My teacher not going to tolerate that. Dialogue has different rules, right? So new speakers get new lines. Now Sarah is speaking. I didn't check the kitchen drawer. Sarah pointed toward the hallway. So this is Sarah's words. So Sarah could be in the paragraph with her words, right? We don't need to say Sarah said because we have Sarah pointed toward the hallway. So we could infer, okay, well, Sarah said, right? It's not interesting to read Sarah said. She's still speaking. She's still saying, I saw Jake in there 5 minutes ago. So this remains in Sarah's paragraph, right? If you have questions about that, you could ask me. If you read fiction, open any of your novels and you will see this pattern. You may not have noticed it before because you just read a book, but now that you're alert for it, you will see it. When there are speakers, speakers get new lines. Not new sentences necessarily, but new lines. Well, I guess by default, they have to get a new sentence. All right, so you're taking on the example and you make sure you write dialogue to develop plot, right? If you have questions, please say. 1 more minute at most, okay? All righty. Let's look at another example. So it's down at the bottom here. I erase all this. Did you hear that? I think I have 2 more examples for us, right? This one and one more. And we're done with the what dialogue is being used for portion. Did you hear that? Whispered Ellie. Hear what? That's scratching behind the door. Neither of them moved. What is this piece of dialogue for? What is this piece of dialogue being used for? Thought development. Because there's something scratching. I think I more agree with students who are saying things like it's showing fear. Because nothing is really happening. They just hear a strange sound. To create suspense, yes, I can believe that. So dialogue used to create mood, a feeling. Mood is a feeling, right? So this dialogue is used to create mood. The feeling you want your reader to have as they read the story. You want them to feel anxious, you want them to feel tense, you want them to feel relaxed, you want them to feel scared, you want them to feel happy, right? Your dialogue can help you do that. Tension and suspense. Yes, that is the movie. It could indicate a plot twist. It could be a signal for a plot twist. I don't think these lines are developing plots so much as they are creating suspense and contributing to the mood. What would after this slide, what would you like as a brain cooler before we go to the last one? You want the genie and his questions, or you want the animal riddles? Okay. Y'all are kind of split down the middle here for genie and animal riddles. So, whoops, right after we will do the animal riddles, and then after the last slide, we could do a few genie questions if y'all want. Or maybe I better invert the order. Genie questions first, because you need to poll for that, and then animal riddle for the last thing, right? Okay, last one here. Why did you help him after what he did? Maya asked. This last one is optional to take down. I'll make it optional to take down, right? But if you are a literature student, then this is one of the ones that probably just give you stress when you're studying a story. Why did you help him after what he did? Maya asked. Because being angry doesn't make me want to be cruel. Doesn't make me want to become cruel, Daniel replied. What is this bit of dialogue doing? The chat is open, you could tell me. What is this piece of dialogue doing? Being angry doesn't mean having to be cruel. Does that sound like a life lesson? And if it is a life lesson, okay, yeah, it could be showing character. That's true. I didn't think of that. Or it could be development in character. Yes, that's true. We need the rest of the story to know. It could be character development. But what I was thinking was development of theme, a message, right? Stories that you read in literature generally have themes or a theme, a message about a big idea, right? Um, and when you write stories too, you are putting a thematic message in there, whether you realize it or not, right? So character to develop theme, anger and cruelty. You don't have to be cruel if you're angry, and then also character development. Right, so I'll put all character development. Okay, this one is optional to take down. Okay, we have 2 more minutes with this slide, and then we're gonna move to the next thing. Now we're gonna probably end up going right up to 3:15 because I want to make sure we finish what we have to do, right? So bear with it, guys. All right, last 30 seconds or so, and then I need to change the slide. So if you're not finished, you can either plan to come back to the slide in the recording, or you can take a screenshot on your own. Right, let's continue. I think I'd better save this for us in the PowerPoint. Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, let's save this. Did y'all see the answer to the next riddle, set of riddles? Okay. Let's look at, I want to look at the game first. We can unmute the sound, right? Bullfighting bulls get enraged by the color red. Okay, this answer I know. Do y'all know the answer to this one? Where's the poll? All right, 10 more seconds. Is it the color red that is making them angry and that's why they attack? Okay, let's see. So overwhelmingly, y'all are saying yes, but I think this is false. It's the waving of the cloth that gets them angry. But for real, let's see. For real? Yeah, it's false. Sorry. All right. Did I share the results there? That was the outcome, right? Okay, let's do another one. Oh no. What? Vaccines cause autism. Nobody believes this, right? Scientifically speaking, is this true or false? Ready? All right, 8 more seconds. All right, so the majority of y'all are saying false, and that is correct, right? This is not true at all. All righty, next one. Albert Einstein failed his high school maths courses. This was the last one. Let's do, right. Did he fail his high school maths classes? Oops, I feel that's a yes. I don't know though, but I feel that's a yes. I wonder why he failed them. Do you think he was bored during class? All right, let's check the answer. Y'all are telling me yes. He did not fail his high school math classes. All right, so where are the standings now? So after the first round, yellow was last then. But now yellow is first with 44 points. Green is second with 42. Red with 41 in third. And blue 37 in last place for now. Okay, is the music playing? Let me mute it. All right, let's go to our last slide. And then if we have time afterwards, we could do some of the, and you'll have energy, we could do some of the animal riddles. Here's the last slide. Now you're taking notes from this. You do not need to write down every single thing, but you need to remember these things when you're writing dialogue, right? So take notes. So the first thing is the rules about punctuation, which you everything that you took on before is an example of this. You must have open and close punctuation marks. You cannot leave out one or the other, right? You have to put commas, full stops, and so on inside the quotation mark. It doesn't go outside the quotation mark, right? So it is like just when you wrote it down, exclamation mark, quotation, the close quotation, right? It is not this, right? This is wrong and this is correct, right? Capital letters if it's a new dialogue sentence only. So it's not when you go to the next line necessarily capital letter, but when the speaker is starting a new sentence, capital letter, right? New or change in speaker gets a new paragraph. So sometimes you could have a one-line paragraph. We just talked about this, right? So if it's a new speaker, a different speaker, then new paragraph. If the speaker is not changing, you could continue on in that paragraph, right? Which we just saw with Sarah, I think, the ceiling example. She kept talking, so her words stayed in the same paragraph, right? Use tags sparingly and creatively. What is a tag? The dialogue tag is like, she said, right? He whispered, they shouted. Someone had asked in chat if you have to call somebody, if you could write their name. Well, you could say, I shouted his name over and over, I shouted her name over and over. But you wouldn't write the name 10 times necessarily, right? Alrighty, what else? So what else do I have here? So said is a very overused and boring word. So when you could avoid said, do it. If you use it once or twice in your story, that is enough, right? If the reader could figure out who spoke, then there's no need to say said Sarah, whispered Sarah, according to Sarah, yelled Sarah, right? Just leave it, let the reader figure it out. So here's an example. How are you feeling? My teacher inquired. So you can see the question mark inside the quotation marks. My head is pounding, comma, close quotation. I managed to get out. That's too bad. So who says in nine that's too bad? We would infer is the teacher. So I don't have to put here said my teacher. That's too bad, said my teacher. I don't have to put that. Those are unnecessary words. Right? Okay, so this brings us to the end of our class. I did not turn on the recording for this whole spiel of this slide. Oh no. All right, this brings us to the end of our class today on setting and dialogue. Right, I will go over this slide for the recording in a second again. Once you have taken down your points and examples if necessary from the slide, you are free to depart. The only homework you have is to review and to finish your notes if you did not finish them in class, right? Next week, we have our last Saturday class, and we'll be talking about interesting ways to start a story and interesting ways or possible ways to end the story, right? I'm just going to close the chat for a few minutes so I don't get overwhelmed by goodbye messages. Once you're all done, if you have any additional questions, you could ask them, right? I'll reopen the chat in a couple minutes. So if you have a question to ask, you just wait for those 2 minutes and then I'll open it for you. All right, for those of you who remain, I'm reopening the chat now in case you have questions. You could send them, right? Adafi, I apologize. I was supposed to post it today. I have not posted it as yet. I will post it this weekend. And when I do that, I will send a message on the channel to say it's posted, right? I can leave the screen up and the meeting open. If you're still taking notes, no problem. Go ahead. As well as you could also take a screenshot and finish it from your screenshot if you like, right? But if you're still here writing, I will leave it open for you. All right, guys, if anybody else is still writing, let me know, right? Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and close the meeting.